It's part two of dynamic MIDI sources. So we already went through JS plus Y, otherwise called CC01, which is your standard mod wheel. Let's move on to JS minus Y, which is typically called your breath controller. The first thing that I want to say is it gives the CC number here, like which CC this is assigned to, and then it also gives the user CC here. You can go over into the Edit tab and go to your preferences, and you can actually change which user CCs are here, which would change which user CCs pop up on this list, since they don't give you the full number of all 128 CCs. You can choose which ones show up as a dynamic MIDI source. Anyway, this is user CC2, which also happens to be the CC2. And this is kind of just like JS plus Y. It's just moving the joystick down instead. But I want to take this opportunity to try something. I actually have already tried it, and the results are a bit disappointing. But let's say that we have the top and bottom set to 64. And I can just click this and just type 64 and then hit enter. And because that pop-up menu was there, it kind of made it weird. But so now the top and bottom is 64, and I want to see if we have this on a momentary switch, if this would just act as a threshold. So when I move this parameter, when I send this CC out, we will get this changing value. But unfortunately, we can't set kind of like an off and on threshold, which is what I was hoping to do by just setting the top and bottom at 64. It kind of treats them almost as if they're like one value, and I guess maybe it makes one invisible, like one is covering the other or something. I'm not really sure how you want to think about it conceptually, but unfortunately it doesn't work. Let's try with toggle, and it's the same results where unfortunately it doesn't work. Let's try one at 63 and the other at 64. This is on toggle still. So that does work perfectly. That might be the best settings to have toggle and switch at when using a continuous controller, 63 and 64, because then you never have to worry about the stickiness that we're getting at the extreme ends of our joystick. So let's move on to the next user CC, which is CC04, a foot pedal. I don't have a foot pedal attached to my Kronos, so the only way for me to show you this parameter is if I use Cubase. And with Cubase, I happen to have this foot switch, quote unquote foot switch, as a CC4 continuous automation. And, you know, it doesn't have to behave as if it's just sending like a value of 0 to 127. It can be continuous. So let me show you what that looks like. So if we have that as our source, we will get continuous control for RGE once it loops back around. There we go. Oh, and let's see. I have it on momentary. I want it on continuous in order for that to affect our value smoothly. There we go. So again, you don't have to use foot pedals or switches as if they are foot pedals or switches. You could have them behave as if they are continuous controllers if you're automating that CC number from a DAW. Let me go ahead and stop reading this. So next up we have a dampener pedal. I'm not going to go over that. Portamento switch. I mean, I think I've pretty much gone over. I don't necessarily have to go over the rest of these parameters. Use your CC7. This is your standard MIDI volume control. Ribbon controller. I did already explain that anything with an asterisk is something that's kind of specific to the Kronos, which is on the Kronos hardware. So obviously you have a MIDI, you have a ribbon controller, you have a vector joystick. You can use X in its entirety, or you can use just the positive X. I guess this might be beneficial to go over. So like vector joystick X on continuous is using the full range of the of X So if I go left, we're at 0. If I go all the way to the right, we're at 100. I could, of course, flip the polarity, and then all the way to the right would be 0, and all the way to the left would be 100. If I were to just use vector joystick plus X, let's put the polarity on plus, it means that when we are in the middle, I guess we're not getting any modulation. That's because on the Kronos itself, I forgot to, in the global settings, if you go to MIDI, the MIDI tab, and then you just have the regular MIDI tab on top of that, make sure that in the lower left window where it says MIDI routing setup, the first option there is vector MIDI out, and you want to choose vector CC control out and not vector joystick. Jumping back into combi mode. Now when I move the vector joystick plus X, we do see that it does change the swing percentage. Of course, if I do minus X, then the minus X direction would also change. Plus Y does nothing unless I change it to plus Y. Wait, let me see. Let me go to the vector tab. Oh, for some reason, in the combi, I have plus Y as JS plus Y when I want it on VJS plus Y. And I'll also do minus Y for the... Okay, let's try that. Yep. Okay. So the settings in both the global matter and in the combi or program itself under the EQ vector / control tab, you'll see a box called vector CC control. And that's where you can set those parameters. That decides what output the vector joystick is doing. So yes, a few roadblocks, but all surmountable. And that's it for all of the CCs. And then the next time I'll go over all of the karma switches and sliders and things. Thanks.